Senator Menendez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm the longest serving member of the committee on either side of the aisle at this point in time, and that has given me the benefit of listening to my colleagues on many issues over a period of time. And I must say that if what this administration decided was decided by the Obama administration, the outrage would be deafening. And you know, Ambassador Jeffries, I have the greatest respect for you. But one can try to put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. One can ultimately call capitulation a victory, but it's still capitulation. And one can ultimately have a retreat and say it's strategic, but it's still a retreat. And that's, I feel, exactly what's happened here. You made a statement earlier about being a diplomat, not a military person, and I respect that. But in fact, it is military force that has gotten both Russia and Turkey exactly what they want. Turkey went ahead and through its actions and by the agreement that I've been given the Sochi agreement in the communique that was issued, basically got everything they want. They don't have to fire a single shot. So here we are in August, as you've aptly said, we made an agreement, we were living up to it. That agreement, as I understand, for security purposes was working well. They violated it. After we told the, Syrian democratic forces to stand down from their defenses. So they got them to stand down on the defenses. Then we had an agreement which was working perfectly well. They violated that agreement by now coming in and, going ahead and using military force. Military force that at the end of the day, I know I'm concerned about the press reports that has bombs landing near our troops, even though they knew their location, that has troop advancement against elements of where our troops were. So at the end of the day, Turkey gets a 20-mile wide swath through a good part of what was ancestral homes of Kurds in Syria, and they get the sanctions lifted from them. Not that I think the sanctions that were placed were the greatest ones, because at the end of the day, the stock market in Turkey went up after the sanctions were announced. So they got everything. So I don't understand how, at the end of the day, this is in any interest about the United States. I've never said that we were there to defend the Kurds, but we were there to defeat ISIS. And we are far in a worse position. Wouldn't it be fair to say in your testimony, which I actually think your written testimony is more revealing than even the questions we've had back and forth, you talk about the U.S. strategic objective and national security interests in Syria remain being the enduring defeat of ISIS, al-Qaeda, and their affiliates, the reduction and expulsion of Iranian malign and influence, and the resolution of the Syrian civil war on terms favorable to the United States and our allies, and in line with UN Security Council Resolution 2254. Isn't it fair to say that those strategic objectives and national security interests have been made far more difficult as the result of the decisions and where we're at today?
Once again, that's the reason why we opposed Turkey coming in. We said, if you come in, you are going to, as I said, scramble the entire security system in the Northeast. That's going to have a big impact on fighting ISIS.
But they did what they wanted. We retreated. We retreated. They did what they wanted, and we retreated. I think your statement tells it all on, I guess it's about page 4 or 5 of your statement. You say, Turkey launched this operation despite our objections, undermining the de-ISIS campaign, risking endangering and displacing civilians, destroying critical civilian infrastructure, and threatening the security of the area. Turkey's military actions have precipitated a humanitarian crisis and set conditions for possible war crimes. Well, all of that doesn't inure to helping our strategic objectives as outlined in your testimony. I think that's a fair statement.
Absolutely. There's no doubt that Turkey's coming in has threatened all three of our objectives in Syria.
So at the end of the day, I question whether or not we've been talking about Turkey, and you know, Mr. Assistant Secretary, you said in response to questions by Senator Markey that it's an important relationship for the United States. My question is, does Turkey see the United States as an important relationship for it? Because if it does, it just keeps spiting its nose and doing everything contrary to what a good relationship with us would mean. One final set of questions. You're familiar, Mr. Secretary, with the CATSA legislation that passed the Senate 98-2 and signed into law by President Trump in August of 2017?
Yes, Senator.
And does CATSA have a mandatory provision sanctioning any significant transaction with the Russian military?
Yes, Senator, it does.
Did Turkey take the Russian S-400 system for delivery this summer?
Yes, sir.
Is there any realistic scenario in which the purchase of an S-400 is not a significant transaction under the law?
Senator, that issue is currently under review as part of a deliberative process. I can't get ahead of any decision by the Secretary of State with respect to sanctions under CATSA.
I didn't ask whether the Secretary of State is going to sanction Turkey on the CATSA. I asked whether or not the purchase worldwide of an S-400 is not a significant transaction.
Senator, that determination has not been made as a matter of law.
Wow. What a message we're sending in the world. That message undermines the actions of the Congress of the United States, which in an overwhelming bipartisan vote sent to the President legislation to push back on Russia, 98-2. If you start opening that door, you will have undermined the very essence of what the law is meant, and you will be undermining the congressional intent, because I'm one of the authors of it. I understand what I meant and what others who joined with me to ultimately pass it meant. It is not a question of whether that is a significant transaction. That is a significant transaction. If the purchase of the S-400 is not a significant military transaction from a country purchasing it from Russia, then nothing is. Then nothing is. And I simply cannot understand, that answer. And at some point, you're all going to have to come up with an answer, including if it's the State Department or the administration's legal view that such a transaction is not a significant transaction under the law, we need to hear it. The Congress of the United States needs to hear it. But you can't hide under the guise that you're all thinking. You've been thinking about this for some time. This is not the first time this question's been raised. You need to give us an answer, and we need to force an answer if you fail to give it to us, because at the end of the day, we need to send a global message about what is a significant transaction. And if the purchase of the S-400 is not a significant transaction, then I don't know what Senator Inhofe, the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, Senator Reid, the ranking member, Senator Risch, and myself, who all signed on to a public op-ed to try to get Turkey to go in a different direction. We made it very clear that all of our views on a bipartisan basis, that that's a significant transaction and sanctionable under CATSA. So if it's the administration's view that it's different, we need to know. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator. The Secretary has made clear that he's committed to implementing CATSA. The CATSA deliberations are multifaceted. They're complex, conducted on a case-by-case basis. The administration, of course, always considers the importance of maintaining CATSA's credibility as a deterrent to Russian arms sales around the world during the sanctions deliberations. Those deliberations are, as I have noted, ongoing.
And that is incredible. If you want to maintain the credibility of CATSA, then you've got to find that the S-400 is a significant transaction. If you don't, then you have neutered the law, and the Congress should act appropriately, therefore. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your question.